we'll listen to it, and as you can see, they've given us a little light reading. So we'll consider everything that we hear here, and then we'll make our comments when it comes up to a vote. So this is your hearing this time.
Can I say something? So, just to be clear, so again, the public hearing process tonight, the applicant is here, and I think they have some witnesses and some experts that are probably gonna testify. And they're gonna go and put on their, whatever they wanna present first. Then, any member of the public who wants to speak is gonna get an opportunity to speak. They'll make their comments to the board and make their points that they wanna make. And then at that point, if the applicant has something they'd like to respond to, they'll get an opportunity to do that, and that's the process for the meeting. I can tell you that, nothing's gonna be voted on this evening, right? The hearing's being held, is scheduled to be held tonight. It's possible the hearing might need to be continued or not, I don't know the answer to that, that's as the hearing moves forward, but there's nothing on the agenda, the actual township agenda to vote on this evening. This is strictly the night for the public hearing. So, with that, anything else you wanna add? I'll turn it over to the applicant, to present. I guess, just a couple housekeeping items quickly is that, this, Mr. Kurtai, this, advertised, was properly advertised and took care of all that?
Yes.
Posted?
Yes.
All right. We have the documents here, we'll admit those as township exhibit one, and then that'll turn to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. My name is Donald Graham, law firm Dillon McCandless, King, Coulter and Graham. I'm here on behalf of the applicant tonight, which is Cove Run Acquisition LP. With me tonight is Chad Weaver, who's in the back here, Fred Schultz. Both of them are from Weaver Master Builders, who would be the builder on this project. Also with us is Alberto Jarquin. Where's Alberto? Okay, and Jennifer McCracken, both engineers with Gateway Engineering. Before we get started, I put a large binder in front of everybody, and I have a series of exhibits that I would request get admitted into the record for tonight's hearing. I sense sometimes when I put these large binders in front of people that they think, why did we do this? Why did we spend all this time? Well, I think part of the reason is that you as supervisors hear public hearings and hear presentations from developers, and they're very summary in nature. And I'm not sure that you always appreciate what it takes for a development project in terms of the engineering and studies and reports and everything that has to be prepared and presented to the township before we walk in the door for a hearing like this. So I think it's important you understand the record. You can then look at it to get any details you need or want with respect to the project. They're all in there. So,
Mr. Graham, we can, if you want, just administrative, are you suggesting to admit exhibits?
Admit all of-
Applicants 1 through 21?
yes,
Unless you're, I think they're admitted for the record, take them as they come.
thank you. I think it's easier than me doing that one at a time.
Mr. Graham, just a quick question before you start. I've noticed that there's a lot of familiar faces here, and we've seen you before, and I know we've seen Mr. Schultz before. And so I just wanted to clarify, is this like a crossover episode, right? You guys have been here before us, and this is, Mr. Schultz is the applicant?
Yeah.
Mr. Weaver is the applicant?
Yeah, so let me be clear. So this isn't really a crossover because this is the first time this has been before you.
No, I just meant the
I may be a
people, yeah, I
crossover,
meant the
but-
people in the room. I've seen a lot of familiar faces, yes.
They may have had other projects in the township, but this project, my client and the applicant is Cove Run Acquisition LP.
Okay,
Weaver Master Builders will be the builder of the homes and townhomes in this project. They are also part of the Cove Run Acquisition LP group.
okay.
Yeah, I think Sarah's just clarifying, because we know Brett from, it involves, we know you know, you're esteemed attorney, but he can serve, he can
Yes, I
totally
just- yeah.
different clients.
Yeah, totally different client, totally different role, yep. So what's the purpose of tonight's hearing? The purpose of tonight's hearing is just to have you review the application, accept our presentation of our testimony, accept the comments from the public, and evaluate the application that we've submitted. In June of 2025, the township adopted a new PRD ordinance, which changed some of the standards with respect to PRDs in Indiana Township. This plan has been submitted and reviewed under those new standards, so this is under the current ordinance that's in place. One of the reasons that you put a PRD ordinance in place was to meet the growing demands for housing in the township, and at the same time maintaining to the greatest extent possible the township natural character and protecting highly sensitive areas. We think that plan achieves those objectives and is highly consistent with what you were trying to accomplish in your ordinance. I would point out from the beginning, and this will be talked about in greater detail, but a lot of times people say, well, you're doing a PRD, so you get a lot more density. This district would allow 2 units per acre. Our density is under 2 units per acre. So this is actually a project where we got benefits of smaller lots and some townhouses, but the number of units really is less than you would be allowed by doing it as a traditional subdivision. So the board's role is, number one, to determine if we comply with the requirements of your ordinance. And number two, to the extent that we request a modification, to evaluate that modification request to determine whether or not we meet the standards that entitle us to a modification from a standard. So they're your 2 roles. At the end of the day, if the plan meets the requirements in the ordinance and the modifications meet the standards for the granting of modifications, then the plan should be approved in accordance with your ordinance. That's my background. I'm going to turn it over to Fred Schultz at this time to make the presentation on the plan.
But before we get started, your attorney gave an opening, but now the court reporter can swear any witnesses. And really, if anybody plans on giving any testimony, we can do everybody collectively rather than one at a time. So, and also if any members of the public plan on presenting testimony, you can also now be sworn if you want. And it doesn't hurt to get sworn. Just because you stand up now and get sworn in to testify doesn't mean you have to. But if you want to, it's probably a good idea just in case if you want to say something to.
Do you all solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Good evening. Thank you for seeing us tonight. As Mr. Graham had mentioned, my name is Brett Schultz, here representing the Cove Run Acquisition LP, and I'm also an employee as Vice President of Development for Weaver Homes. And Mr. Graham did accurately describe the relationship between the LP and Weaver Homes. As we've got a large audience here, Don did a great job. A couple things I was going to say there, but we have put together presentation, which is visible both to the front and the rear, and a paper copy, I believe I put 7 up there, was made available to all staff and supervisors. I will try to move through this quickly. Please, if I have not adequately touched on something, please stop me. I wanted to make sure that we reserve time for public comment. That's why we're here. With us over that way is Chad Weaver's son, Max. He's our AV guru over there, so if I look over that way, he's going to be working the slides. As said earlier, this is simply known as the Cove Run PRD, and we are here tonight to conduct a public hearing. A couple of housekeeping matters just for the record. Plans were adequately submitted February 14th. They were initially reviewed by the Planning Commission on February 25th of 2026. Reference made to the Dan Slagle letter of 2/19/26. There was a grant of a time extension. We all understand the ramifications of getting these PRD hearings in, so that extension of time was granted. Following the 2/25 meeting, the second review by the Planning Commission was conducted on March 25th of 2026. with reference to the Mr. Slagle letter dated March 20th, 2026. And appropriately, the Board of Supervisors acted on April 8th of 2026 to set the hearing for tonight. All that just for the record. Let me get to mine. Max, would you go to slide 2, please? As a matter of reference, and just to establish the zoning district in which we're working, the hatched area right in the middle of the site, right in the middle of the plan in front of you, rather, is our site. It is bisected to an extent by Cove Run Road. The zoning is the same on both sides of the road, being MDR, in which, as identified in the base zoning standards, the permitted uses, a PRD is a permitted use, obviously following the appropriate procedure, conditions, and everything that we're doing to continue down that path. We had also, from a standpoint of just relationships, labeled a number of the existing roadways. Cove Run Road, Rich Hill Road, the Turnpike, and 910 are all identified here for a location map. Next, please, Max. Thought it appropriate, just a vicinity view showing this as a vacant site. It does abut the Rich Hill development to the south. And most recently, everything to the north, south to an extent, and west of the site is what is now the Conservancy lands or the Game Commission land. So we are entirely bound to the north, west, and south by those lands. We might need to come back to this slide a little bit later. This is a topography slide. We thought it appropriate just to give some various elevations that we consider to be critical locations, which will make more sense in a few minutes, as what the topography looks like here. I'll specifically point out, if we could, at elevation 1140, towards the north in the middle of the site, relative to that elevation call out of 930, which is the stream valley down below. We'll get to that when we talk about road alignments. I am going to spend.
So are there page numbers on this? As you're referring to
we did not.
PowerPoint?
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
That's fine. You're identifying. I think we can clear it.
Okay. So, as Mr. Graham had mentioned, we did try to take that gigantic book and put it into something we can get through clearly and easily in a half an hour. But with respect to the PRD, I think it's very important. The PRD ordinance states specific objectives for what it was trying to do. Max, next slide, please. The very top of this sheet is verbatim out of your ordinance. To summarize even it, growing demand for houses, innovative design, layouts that work with the land to limit road lengths, maintaining natural character of the township. Those are kind of the tenets of what this PRD is to do. It furthers to 8 individual criteria or tests, as I was calling them, again in your ordinance. Those are all in bold, and I'll start with number 1, and I will paraphrase. Conserve open land, including those areas containing unique and sensitive land features such as woodlands, mature trees, and environmentally sensitive areas. Our proposal conserves over 50% of the gross land area, and specifically of the 97.8, we'll use 98 acre site, 54.2 acres are in some manner being conserved. We'll move on to steep slopes in a bit, but with the exception of one required temporary utility crossing, we are not affecting a stream or wetland on this site. And that utility crossing, as I mentioned, is temporary. It's just to get the sewer at the appropriate location. We have no fills for roads. We have no fills for anything. So I think that's a very good job by the Gateway engineers. Number 2, provide greater design flexibility and efficiency in siting services of infrastructure, including the opportunity to reduce road lengths. We've designed this site in such a manner to achieve its highest and best use of the land while staying under that existing base zone density of 2 units per acre. We are at 1.8. Okay, and we'll get into some of those details a little bit more in a bit. Additionally, the smaller lots, the higher density being the townhomes clustered to the center of the site, has allowed us to reduce road lengths and minimize not only the cost initially, but that long-term cost to the township to own, operate, maintain presuming that these would eventually be public rights of way, which would be the standard. Item number 3, provide erosion and sedimentation controls by the retention of existing vegetation and minimization of development of steep slopes. The site in total, the steep slopes is defined by your ordinance as 40% or greater. The site in total includes 9.56 acres of steep slopes. We are disturbing 0.78 acres of those. I would say roughly half of which is for what will be the realignment of Cove Run Road to eliminate that elbow, which will help not only the development, access to the game commission property, and just regular traffic. I think that's a very important thing to point out and keep in mind. Allow for diversity of lot sizes and building designs and densities to accommodate the variety of age and income groups, residential preference, so that the population diversity is maintained. We are offering both conventional single-family homes and multifamily in the form of a duplex and a more traditional townhouse of 3, 4, 5 unit buildings. Of note, however, is all of our single-family homes meet the underlying zoning criteria, being the width of the lot of 75 feet. Each and every one of our single-family homes, which are on the perimeter of the site, do meet that criteria. Preserve and protect the variety of irreplaceable environmentally sensitive resources. I won't restate what I said earlier, with the exception of one temporary wetland and 0.78 acres of steep slopes. We are retaining what are identified and generally accepted as being sensitive areas: streams, wetlands, and steep slopes. Number 6, cluster more development. Can everybody see this right up there? I'll keep going because this is more reading. Cluster more development of the houses and structures on the less environmentally sensitive. So what we've done, you'll see in a minute, the more dense townhomes are entirely located on a portion of the site that's virtually dead flat. We don't really know how it got that flat, but it's not wooded, there's no streams, there's no wetlands, and it's flat. So minimal, no stream disturbance, no slope disturbance, and minimal earthwork to make that happen. 7 is advance the implementation of adopted land uses, transportation, and community policies. This was a little tough to get your head around, but we are proposing sidewalks within the community. The adopted land uses specifically are implemented by compliance with the PRD standards, and which, by the way, complies with your overall comprehensive plan. Okay. And then lastly, provide for conservation and maintenance of open land within the township to achieve the above. As with any PRD or any development, there will be HOAs associated with this. There more than likely will be multiple HOAs as well as different types of uses. So potentially 2 HOAs and a master, something like that, but we haven't got that far yet. So we'll hit next, there we go, okay. So getting through that, this is our plan. And I will caution, north is kind of sideways. North isn't directly north on this page, so it's bottom right to upper left. To the north are 61 single-family homes, and as I mentioned, they are all a minimum lot width of 75 feet. And in some cases, as the road got steeper, we actually widened those out to 90 to 100 feet to make sure we couldn't reach out and shake your neighbor's hand, and we did not have drainage or slope issues between homes. To what we're calling the south portion of the site, that poses 33 additional singles. Those are, by the way, the ones that are more in the yellow color, clustered around the perimeter of the site as to maintain that not natural character, but a more character in keeping with the standard PRD or single-family residence, with 78 of the townhouses being the darker, more grayish buildings to the interior. Of note here, because this is a nice colored plan, we'll get to modifications, but I'd like to point out, with the exception of the short cul-de-sac to the very west of the site, being bottom of this page, we are proposing a public right-of-way to the rear of all those townhomes, such that their access to their driveway is restricted and limited to a rear entry unit. We are all aware that townhomes with a driveway every 20 feet are a long way can be problematic with parking, access, mailboxes, all of the above. So we, in working with staff, had come up with that idea. We'll get to some of those details in a bit, but I do believe that works much better for trash cans, vehicular access, walking, whatever the case may be, and it maintains that streetscape to the perimeter of the single-family home on one side and the townhouse on the other, maintaining that more normal character. The plan, this is the best to show you, does include currently seven stormwater management devices. Those are all the blue shaded areas. They've been appropriately placed to accommodate the sub-drainage areas of the site, as well as access the requisite downstream conveyance locations, i.e. stream. Max, would you go next, please? Simply to more boldly point out the road network, to the north, we've got a single cul-de-sac. We are requesting a modification on its length. And to the south, we've got a road network of 4 proposed streets. And I'll point out Fieldview Lane will be the 5th street. That's kind of quasi road or not road right now, but it is an existing right of way. We will be improving it to the township standard as is shown on the blue portion up to somewhere where the game commission is going to do their thing. We will have multiple points of access to it, so we didn't see any harm in kind of dead ending that and letting them do what they may want to do in the future.
Are the school buses gonna be
You know, save your questions and you'll, at the end, direct them, we'll let them
I knew that
go
was-
to the presentation.
Max, actually, would you back up one slide, Max, please? I knew this. Very important to point out, I mentioned road realignment of Cove Run. This plan, you can see the portion of Cove Run, which is a little bit darker there. We are working with the Game Commission to get that realigned to make for a more T intersection. Our grading will permit the pullback, the layback of that slope. So I'm sure you've all driven that, but as you are going around that bend, there's a blind spot there. You can't see. By flattening that curve and laying that slope back, we will allow that to be more of a conventional T intersection with adequate sight distance, not only for through traffic, but traffic from our community getting onto Cove Run Road. Thanks, Max. One more. Okay, so we've got an open space plan. I thought this was pretty good for inclusion here. Everything that you see in what is white is either lot, single family, or townhome lot. Everything in green is the common open space, okay? Your ordinance is very clear, you must exclude stormwater areas, so I can't count stormwater basins as open space, because it only makes sense, there's a fence around them and you don't want kids in them anyways. Your requirement is 25%. And then if you go to 35%, you actually get some bonus density by doing so. We are at 50.7%. Now that is respective of your slope requirements and your stormwater management requirements, excluded from that common open space. So it's a little deceiving. Everything green plus everything gray. I know a lot up there is gray, but everything you see kind of in between the green is all steep slope, which will be permanently placed into the open space, with the exception of the 0.7 acres, 7-8 acres that are just required for miscellaneous here or there, and mainly to flatten out the curve on Cove Run Road. I mentioned earlier the basins. This is as good as any place to point them out. We have provided access to each and every of these basins as is required by subdivision land development ordinance for their long-term care, maintenance, replacement, whomever that may be in the future. Those also very nicely will function as dual-purpose trails or access provisions for those who want to walk through the open space, whatever they may do. They are gravel, so they're not something that needs paved. It's not a burdensome to either the township or the HOA in the long term. Next slide, please, Max. I want to move into some of the PRD criteria. If you go to the next, I'm going to quickly go through these. This is just to outline how we comply. MDR standard, MDR-based zoning district, PRD is a permitted use. Development standards, 20 acres, we more than have 20 acres of continuous land. Next, please. Frontage, we certainly meet all the frontage requirements. This is where I got into a little bit. In single-family areas, your maximum density is 2 dwelling units an acre. In townhome areas, it's 4 dwelling units an acre. The highest we are, inclusive of townhomes and singles, is 1.8 units. So we're actually under, including the townhomes, than we could otherwise do with single families. Bulk and area requirements, this we'll be getting to 2 of our modifications. Working with staff, working with Mr. Slagle, we had come to this design feature to move the townhomes closer to the front street. So instead of a 20-foot setback, they're a 10-foot setback. That still allows approximately 25 feet from the actual structure to the road, but that allows us to add this access way in the back. That allows more parking to happen. We have an exhibit a little bit here that shows how we can actually double stack for the most part cars in the driveways, as well as 2 parking spaces in the garage. So in theory, you could park 6 cars in each one of these. There was discussion, we did land on a 50-foot public right-of-way through planning, which that did, I'll say, backdoor us into an additional modification to widen that. We have an exhibit to show that there, so that we've actually added a modification, but I think the picture will be worth 1,000 words. As I mentioned, common open space and buffer areas are complied with. Impervious coverage is complied with. Building spacing, height. We comply with the phasing. There's some language in there about how you can't get out of sync. We have included a traffic impact study that is in here. We'll get to that specifically. And then buffer areas, walls, and fences are all complied with as to design guidelines. As is required, I'm not going to read this, but we are required to state environmental impact statement. Sorry, that was redundant. Which we meet every criteria as far as environmental impact that is put forth either in the SALDO or the PRD. Specifically, 36.6 acres of the site is staying exactly as it is now. Next, please. Again, I'm not going to read them all, but contained within the plan set are all the specific zoning criteria, site acreage, how many units, what is the mix. The development chart at the bottom identifies the required versus proposed. You see the 2 modifications appear again here. Max, next please. Some additional notations just about how we meet township requirements of driveways and streets and whatnot. Here we notate our minimum proposed lot widths. There's a 75 foot, as I mentioned earlier. That again does meet your base zoning standard. And then we identify a range of lot sizes for both the single families and the townhomes. Next, please, sir. Okay. We also are required to have a public interest statement here. And the short version is we feel that this PRD application meets your PRD standards, retains as much woodland as possible, minimizes any slope, stream, or wetland disturbance, offers the mix in housing types, offers the mix in sizes, reduces road length. Basically, we really did our best to get a great job, Alberto, of hitting all of those 8 tenets of the PRD as to warrant approval and work with this ordinance instead of fighting it. Okay. Okay, now we're on the modifications. This is, how am I doing on time, Don? We do have a request.
So just to be clear, there's not a time limit on you to present. You present what you need to.
Okay.
I don't want
Well,
you.
your regular meeting's at 7, right?
We're here
okay.
to listen to your public hearing.
That's fine.
If there's evidence that you need to present your case, please do it. Don't feel that don't exclude presenting something that you think supports what you're doing
I get
at the
through
expense
this,
of the time.
Okay. Working with staff, and as good a time as any, prior to any application being made, we had 2 official advisories, and I think we may have had 1 discussion. But one of the, I won't say hardships, but top part of this site is very long on the north side. Max, could you possibly go to either the last or the PRD page? We didn't have a, So right there, that upper cul-de-sac, the Saldo limits, not the PRD, but the Saldo limits road length of 1,200 foot on a cul-de-sac, okay? This site has got a gigantic ridge run through here, and as if you recall, I specifically pointed out from the elevation from where that cul-de-sac is to the creek down below, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 vertical feet, okay? We have asked for a modification to increase the distance, the length of that cul-de-sac from 1,200 to approximately 2,700 linear feet. That's what is shown on here. That is to, as is permitted for, granting of a modification by the board where it's demonstrated that we can work with the land. I have some language. Now, Max, would you please go back to the modification? So, we took a swing at what would happen if you connected that road and brought it back out, okay, and then get rid of the modification. You'd have to drop the cul-de-sac 40 or 50 feet. You'd have to fill in about 500 feet of stream value to do it, because you still can't get that low, can't make up 200 feet to 500 feet. So you'd have a 40-foot cut, a 40-foot fill, and then if you even could do that, you'd be coming out on the Cove Run Road on a portion of it where it's 9 to 11% already, so you'd kind of be sitting here like this. What does that mean in nuts and bolts? It's 3 acres of slope disturbance. It's 500 feet of stream impact at least. It's at least 3 more acres of wooded clearing. But at the end of the day, you're gonna end up on the side of a road that I don't think anybody is gonna really enjoy. We also had worked with staff, Mr. Slagle, on widening the entrance on that cul-de-sac. So that as you approach Cove Run Road, the road widens out if you had an accident or you had, for whatever reason, somebody needed to park there. Would we go to 30 feet?
Yes, 29.
29 or 30 feet as opposed to your standard road width. And then at about the location where the 1,200 foot mark would be, we've got a little eyebrow roundabout in there. Not roundabout, walk that back. A little eyebrow such that vehicles can turn around. It would provide for our location for our mailbox cluster, so that you are, in a sense, putting an interim cul-de-sac in there. So that would be modification number 1, which, by the way, was approved, recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. Next, please, Max. The second, as I already touched on, was the reduction in the front yard setback of the townhomes only from 20 feet to 10 feet. That essentially adds 20 feet in the backyards where more parking can occur. Thus, it's not in the front yard, it's going to be somewhere. We really like this, the fact that it's going to be in the backyard. You choose to live there, and you're not disturbing the neighbor across the street or regular passers through by doing that.
Right, to be clear, not all townhomes, just the ones on that inner circle.
Correct, not all townhomes. There are the smaller cul-de-sacs that I pointed out earlier. They would be the conventional setup. Additionally, this allows more room. Again, we've done some townhomes before. On trash day, there's a lot going on back there. A lot of kids, a lot of things that are going on. Moving them closer to the street, again, isolates that, we'll say disturbance, but that disturbance to the back as opposed to the front, where it's shared versus this is within their own community, if that makes sense. So I think I've covered everything here. And we did have, just to show you what this would look like, this is a zoom in of what that is. Sorry, it looks like a ton of cars. I looked at that, I was a little scared. There's not a concert happening here. But you'll see the townhomes pushed towards the front. The extended driveways are allowed to occur in the back. And you could stack 2 cars in most of those driveways. I won't say all, but most, just the nature of the curvature of the road. As well as, in theory, put 2 cars in your driveway. Okay. This is a point in time that will bring us to our next modification. That right-of-way width was 30 feet at the time. Okay. Somewhat. As a result of it being requested that we increase that right-of-way width from 30 to 50 feet, it also pushed that the rear 10-foot setback out an additional 10 feet. Okay, so when I said earlier we kind of backdoored into that modification, it was through the design process that that came to be. This one is an important one, we'll wait here, okay. So we actually blew this up, and it's limited to these last two townhome buildings, which are shown here. The 30-foot right-of-way, we have no problems. When you go out to 50, potentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the individual townhome units may encroach minimally into that 10-foot rear setback, as is shown on that blowout. We did not see that as a negative. The distance from the back of the unit to the edge of the road is staying exactly the same. It's just that magic line of what we're calling right-of-way got a little bit wider, and it forced us in. It's like 6 inches now. So we also haven't placed every townhome yet. We haven't built anything, so but that needed to be asked. That needed to be the question.
Let me just add to what you were saying there. Originally, you came in with a proposal of making that a private road.
Correct.
In which case it was much narrower. Instead of 24 feet wide, the roadway would have been somewhere around 15 to 18 feet wide. The planning commission, after reviewing that, felt that if the developer would pay the extra money to make it go from 18 feet to 24 feet, it would allow places for snow to be put, garbage cans to be placed, basketball hoops to be put in there. There was just they felt that it was an overall benefit to stretch it. So at the request of the planning commission is why it is now public, or being presented as a public road with a 50-foot right-of-way.
That is all correct. Okay. That covers our modification. For the record, so you see it, this was what we call the planning commission approved plan. This was contained within our previous application, which was reviewed and approved. This just very succinctly told you what's happening it was called west and east. But where are the individual lots and how many are them? We are also required to advise as to what our schedule is. So that's what this plan was to accomplish. As is also required of the PRD application process, we are required to produce a geotechnical report. That report was conducted by Gateway Engineers. It finished up in April. It's evaluated after the drilling of 20 boreholes across the site, and I believe eight infiltration pits, correct? It identified several things. Bearing or adequate material was encountered between 3 and 21 feet on site, so we have good material. Okay. The evaluation was conducted, and the report contains guidance for site grading, foundation construction, below wall excavation and construction where necessary, fill and backfill, floor and footer slab conditions, and also asphalt paving conditions and preparation. So while this report isn't telling us what to do on a particular day, it is making global recommendations through the course of construction, both the land development portion and then as needed with any home building. We will have full-time geotechnical staff, engineering staff on site, overseeing this work, guiding this work, and making recommendations on what exactly this means on a day-to-day basis. Okay? Also, as required, we have a bunch of stuff in there. That was light reading. This is a little bit later. We also were required to prepare a traffic impact study. That too was conducted by Gateway Engineers. It was reviewed, and I won't put words in your mouth, Tim, but it was reviewed and approved at the planning commission level. Yes. For compliance with the application procedure, and also to identify any deficiencies or mitigations required by the introduction of the traffic that would be generated by this community. Max, if you would go to the next, we included in your presentation here a summary and conclusions page. I will jump to the 3 items which are in italicized towards the bottom. With respect to any mitigation or improvements required by this traffic, the recommendation is to realign, which is approximately 750 feet of Cove Run Road, which we've already agreed. We were doing that on day 1 anyways. That's a requirement. We had to do it. There's no further mitigation required anywhere on Cove Run Road or any of its eventual intersections with other roads. Recommendation 2, actually 2 and 3 are the same, is that we conduct a full access local road from the north, and also the improvement of Field View Lane to the south. Full access intersections there with appropriate, this is just a stop sign, but that would obviously include whatever other signage that was deemed necessary for the public welfare, obviously a road name sign, whatever that might be. So that, the traffic study reviewed and approved did not warrant any additional improvements other than on-site. Okay? So next, we should be back to our tentative plan. We put this last just to have a reference plan in the event that I know you're not asking questions tonight, but there's things up here to point and shoot and whatever the pleasure may be.
And just because the board may have questions, but they're gonna let the public go first.
Okay. Is there anything that I, at this time, need to walk back and more accurately explain with respect to any zoning, density requirements, open space, anything like that?
Just for the record, we do have Jennifer McCracken, the transportation engineer, and we do have Alberto Jarquin, the civil engineer on the project. So they're here to answer any more detailed questions you might have on any of those subjects.
Do you have anything further you'd want to present at this point?
There's nothing further that we want to present at this point.
At this point, we open it up for members of the public. I think just you come up, state your name, and identify where you live relative to the project, proximity to the site, and then make whatever comments you want to the board. And if there's questions, the board may direct them to the applicant either at that time or at the end. But you haven't asked that you please direct your comments to the board, because that's what you're presenting to. So I don't know if there was a sign-in sheet or not. But then just, whoever wants to come up, and I promise everybody will get an opportunity.
Okay, if we could mark that as,
What's that?
it's gonna be, it's a drawing showing the detail of those couple townhouse buildings related to the waiver for the rear yard setback. So we're gonna call
That
that.
was not in the PowerPoint?
It was in the PowerPoint, correct?
I think you collectively put the PowerPoint
I did.
in.
Oh, you, okay, all right, I just,
So we don't need anything additional. Okay.
Just state your name and where.
My name is Maria Steinen. I live at 2004 Carroll Lane in the Forest View neighborhood. It's the intersection of Cove Run and Rich Hill Road.
I apologize. Could you state your name again?
Sure, Maria Steinen,
Thank you.
and I live at 2004 Carroll Lane. I'm here today to share my concerns about and my strong opposition to the proposed Cove Run Road development. With the addition of 94 single-family homes and 78 townhomes, I'm incredibly worried about the additional traffic to Cove Run, as that will be the only access point for the two plans. Has there been a traffic study completed, and if not, is one required before the development is approved? Sounds like there was a traffic study. I find it convenient that the builder is the one who conducted the study, but also, is the plan to reopen all of Fieldview Lane as a township road? With all the additional income for the township, I would hope that this is being reviewed as an option. A conservative estimate is an additional 172 vehicles on Cove Run daily. With its blind turns and narrow sections, I worry for the safety of other motorists, for those who frequently walk or bike that road, and the many people who enjoy the Rachel Carson Trail. I am also concerned about the influx of students to the Fox Chapel area school district, specifically Hartwood Elementary School. I feel as though Hartwood is already bursting at the seams, and I don't know how they will be able to accommodate another development, especially one of this size. Chief among my concerns is the board continuing to sacrifice township green space for development. While I realize that the board cannot control when private land is sold, they do have the power to regulate how land is used. One of the things that makes Indiana Township so inviting is green landscape, forests, and undeveloped land. It is one of the things that drew my family here. The township is continuing to sacrifice the natural beauty that makes it so inviting. There is less and less space for wildlife or green space for residents to explore, hike, and commune with nature. In the last 10 years, in the Rich Hill Road, Cove Run areas alone, I have seen the oil well go in on Cove Run Road and the Richmond Estates development added. I was at these same public hearings for both of those. This room was packed with concerned residents. People shared their fears for the environment, overcrowding of land, and again, loss of green space and beauty. Their concerns fell on deaf ears, as the only green this board is seemingly concerned with is that of money. There is still time to make the right decision about this development, and I hope that you do, because once this beautiful land is turned over to development, it is gone for good. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wants to be heard?
Leon Vanta, 336 Mill Dam Road. I think we just heard the overview from the developers and legal staff. We tried very hard to smash that round peg into a square hole. All the legal jargon that they butt up against, everything that we just heard. I just hope we're going into this with eyes wide open. After 22 years in the Marine Corps, making it to Sergeant Major, the highest rank possible, I feel like I'm pretty well versed, almost a subject matter expert when it comes to policy, doctrine, governance, and what I've seen change with this new development and what they want to try to bring to this. It really isn't conducive to what the township originally grew its roots in. When I came here in 2018, I researched every township in this area before moving back after retiring. And I wanted to make sure I did my due diligence and found the township that I could invest in with my family, that over time was gonna be what I really wanted to see come to and stay in that same tradition that it was built on. And it just seems like it's turning over and changing so rapidly that what I'm pouring into it doesn't seem to be, coming back. If you talk about constituent rules, being on Mill Dam Road, I have the pleasure of being within 1,000 yards of the state game lands. I'm 1,000 yards away. Their process, their development is within 25 feet of those game lands, surrounded on 3 sides by one aspect of it. I'm 1,000 yards away, and come opening day of rifle season, having been in a combat zone, Iraq and Afghanistan, multiple deployments, I know what that sounds like. And it's from the day that gun season opens until the last day of it. That's 25, I'm 1,000 yards. Can you imagine what those residents will be at 25 feet? Weekly, hunters come to my driveway and ask, can I come on your property to recover game, wounded animals? Deer and animals running through my yard with arrows still stuck in them, their entrails dragging behind them. At 1,000 yards, crossing roads, valleys, rivers. Here, these people are gonna be inundated with that game land. After we just opened that up to the public, which is an amazing thing that this township did, and I give you praise on it. What an amazing accomplishment, great purchase, more green space, but I'm telling you that is a very densely hunted area because of the population and where it sits. They opened the modernized weapon of straight wall cartridges. High-powered rifles are now allowed in this county. Used to be shotgun only. That's not a thing anymore. Effective range of some of those rounds are 1,000+ yards. 25 feet to that home. I understand taxes are a thing and we need money in the township. But the devaluation that something like this will cause will never pay it back, ever. Not tenfold, ever touch it. As these people move in and social media goes wild of game and deer and noise and everything else that's gonna happen because of this, and it will go wild, and you know it, it will completely devalue that property. And then we have low budget housing and transient people that are gonna come into these houses, unlike the people that are in this community right now that want to invest and grow their families here. I'm asking tonight for courage from the folks on this board. I'm asking for your courage to stand up for something that you may not have had to do before. Make the hard call. I know you feel it in your stomach, this is not the right thing to do for the township on so many cases, and I think you're gonna hear more of that tonight. It's something that will leave your legacy forever. You cannot go wrong with saying no to this. People will remember your courage, your leadership for decades. They vote for things like that. Not saying yes to, yep, here we go, throw another thing in there, blow that beautiful acreage all to pieces. I just don't want one developer's voice to be overheard from the whole community. To speak as one. Thank you for your time.
I'm following two really eloquent people. Michael Quinn, 111 Isley Road. When the fracking took place at the Miller Farm, the traffic was, if you lived where I lived, the traffic was a pain in the butt every single day. But it was temporary. I don't know if it was intentional, I'm sure it wasn't. The traffic study was kind of glossed over. I don't have details, so I'm just going by gut. But the traffic that's gonna come down Cove Run, right across the bridge, where I used to get stuck behind those fracking trucks every morning, that traffic's gonna be unbelievable, and it's gonna be permanent. And it's gonna come across the bridge between Founders Field and between Emerling Park. It's nowhere near the concern that the gentleman that preceded me just brought up, but it is a concern. And that's not why people moved to Indiana Township. It's not why I live in Indiana Township. I think at some point, even you guys, and some of you, I know you're gonna vote for this. He's gonna vote for it, he's gonna vote for it. It's a done deal as far as I'm concerned. I wish they were here. But we reach a tipping point. I don't know if we're there, but we're gonna get to a tipping point where we're gonna be Indiana Township in name only. It's not gonna be the Indiana Township that we had a couple of years ago, or that we even have now. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Elizabeth Venturino, and I'm a resident of 123 Isley Road. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm not here to oppose the Cove Run development outright, because I think thoughtful growth can be a good thing. But I'm asking the board to slow down, because I think we need to think how we can responsibly approve another development without first taking stock of what we actually have. We already have two approved but largely unbuilt developments nearby. 90 homes between the Blue Run Preserve and Kingston and another township have been committed but not yet occupied. Our roads, schools, and stormwater systems haven't caught up with those 90 homes, and what will that mean when they're full? Adding Cove Run on top of that, before we understand the cumulative impact, is getting ahead of ourselves. What makes this especially urgent is what's right next door. The Deer Creek Conservation Project, which were those 266 acres off of Cove Run Road, completed just last year, purchased for $2.6 million by the Land Trust, and transferred to the Game Commission to protect the watershed. It absorbs 231 million gallons of rainwater every year and filters 20,000 pounds of pollutants. New rooftops, driveways, roads from upstream development flow directly into that watershed. If we approve Cove Run without binding stormwater requirements, we risk undermining a public conservation investment this community's fought hard to secure. I'm asking for two things. First, any approval of Cove Run must include enforceable conditions, not suggestions, on stormwater management and infrastructure capacity. Second, commit tonight to a timeline for updating our comprehensive plan. This doesn't feel like us because it's not us. Our comprehensive plan expired over 10 years ago. It doesn't reflect current conditions. I know you've considered our current comprehensive plan, but we're making permanent land use decisions with an outdated roadmap. We owe it to Deer Creek Watershed, to the families moving into those 90 unbuilt homes, and to every resident who lives here with these decisions for decades. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Elizabeth Stanley. I live at 1040 Diane Lane, in a housing development that is at the end of Cove Run Road where it meets Rich Hill. I drive Cove Run Road every day, multiple times a day. I would like to just kind of expand on some of the things that some of the other folks have said tonight. The amount of traffic is a huge concern for me. Cove Run is narrow, it's windy. We have pedestrian traffic, we have bike traffic on that road. It is unsafe as it is, and I just am extremely worried that the addition of these homes will only make that road even more treacherous than it is currently. So I have, my kids play at Emerling Park. They practice at Founders Field. We're down there all the time. I just think that the amount of traffic that will increase is just not a good idea. It's going to place some significant strain on the very qualities that make this community desirable in the first place. The green space for recreation, wildlife habitats, stormwater absorption, and overall quality of life is at risk of losing these benefits when large areas of open land are converted into housing developments. We chose to live in this community because of its rural character, scenic views, and lower density, but continued development will gradually erode that identity and replace it with congestion and overcrowding. We as residents are already frustrated because too much green space has already been sold off, reducing the amount of undeveloped land remaining in the township. Each additional sale and development chips away at the open spaces that once defined the area and provided natural buffers between neighborhoods. There must be a balance between growth and preservation, and that continuing to approve large developments without considering long-term environmental and infrastructure impacts could permanently change the character of the township for future generations. So, to be blunt, I'm strongly opposed to the residential development plan for Cove Run Road, and as board members, I urge you to reconsider what really matters to those who already live here and take action while there is still time to preserve what truly makes this area so valuable. Thank you.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming out. Lou Grammer, 315 Voskamp Drive. Just live over the hill in Rural Ridge. So one of my main questions is, I wanted to know, was this plan ever submitted as an MDR under those guidelines?
I think again, if you want to direct it to the board, I would.
Sorry, was a plan ever submitted for this space as the MDR code?
Do you mean it's like a straight subdivision, like development?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, not that I ever got word of.
Okay. I mean, if we're talking about modifications, nearly doubling the space that, or more than doubling what's allowed. I mean, where are the modifications going to stop? I mean, you're only adding this space to add more houses because it sounded like the alternative was not really doable. So if we're introducing these PRDs just to be able to add more housing, then I would request that they be terminated. I mean, they were developed here to preserve land, and I would like to see how this PRD is preserving land better than a subdivided MDR plan.
You keep saying MDR. MDR is a zoning district. It's not a process. You mean a multi-subdivision, correct?
Yes, a subdivision under the.
Multi-subdivision in the place of PRD.
Correct.
They go border to border, and you clear cut the problem. So you lose all your trees, you have no open space, now you have bigger water controls that the young lady was talking about that you have to control. It's gonna be a bigger problem. So So that's the difference between a PRD and a multi-subdivision.
This is kind of a fact-based argument, though. I mean, I think he's talking about the fact that there are flexibility.
I'm just telling
We
him what
pride the
the difference is
PRD
between
in
a
flexibility.
John, just tell him what the difference is between a PRD and a multi-subdivision.
But you are taking something that's theoretical, being able to put houses on every part of this land, when there's a lot of practicalities with topography that makes that possible, and I think that's what Mr. Raymer is getting at.
Topography drives in PRD, yes.
Yes, I don't imagine that you would approve housing on all of that land.
But the developer has the right to clear cut it because the lots in that development are gonna go to the outer perimeters of all that parcel property.
That is an option. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi there, my name is Vanessa Lynch, I live on Saxonburg Boulevard. I just wanted to point out the proximity of this planned residential development to the Miller well pad. I think it's really important that prospective buyers of these homes be fully aware of that proximity. We know from a lot of really deep research that proximity to a well pad has serious health impacts for families. And as any planned residential development would be, there will be a lot of families inside of these homes. So I would highly encourage that we make sure that anyone buying homes in this area be fully aware of the proximity to that well pad and of those impacts on their possible impacts on their health. So that's my only comment, is just making sure that people who are buying here have full understanding of that issue. I think it's really important for a builder to be very clear for people who are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a home that this could be an issue.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Henry, 529 Rich Hill Road, third generation at this site.
Sure, just say your name again one more time.
Oh, Elizabeth Henry. I urge this committee to vote against the proposed development as it does not benefit Indiana Township residents. In fact, approving this development will be detrimental not only to us, but to Western Pennsylvania, the United States, and the world at large due to the destruction of the tons of carbon stored and hence the release of tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. The very first article in the Township Zoning Code, Section 37525, recognizes that the natural resources that exist in this township are worth preserving. This was the first item listed, not some footnote. And one of the major benefits of conserving open land is carbon capture. The figures I am about to give you are from Penn State Extension's website. And do you want the details of that? That's extension.psu.edu/the economic value of private forests and climate change mitigation. And there's a hyphen between each word. Their figures per acre are estimates, but over the whole development parcel, based on their estimates, there are currently 3,539.5 tons of carbon stored, sequestered in above-ground biomass, which holds 12,961 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere. Each year, the amount of additional carbon stored above ground is 70 tons, meaning that 259 tons of carbon dioxide is kept out of the atmosphere. This is air being weighed, not rocks. Keeping 259 tons of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere every year is huge. Development demands the destruction of almost every tree, shrub, living plant, and the total displacement of living creatures. So the elimination of carbon stores will be total. You're told that only 36 acres will be undisturbed. The other 63 will be destroyed. Over the years, the township has lost hundreds of acres of above-ground biomass to Shawnee Ridge, Rural Ridge Estates, Richmond, Blue Run, and Blue Run's new development, and now the development on Dorseyville Road. How many millions of tons of CO2 has this township released into the atmosphere or failed to capture in the name of development? 360 trees the developer plants will never recapture the 12,961 tons of CO2 released once the bulldozers scrape it down to bare earth. We all have been told that the use of LED lighting, Energy Star appliances, electric vehicles, and choosing green companies will make a difference for the environment, that it will decrease greenhouse gases. But this committee has a bigger choice, bigger decision that will make a big difference for the environment. Every time you turn on an LED light or use your Energy Star appliance, you can either be proud of keeping 259 tons of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and making a huge difference for this planet, or live with the fact that this development will only add to the problem of climate change, which will not in any way benefit us in Indiana Township or the world at large.
Do you have any further comments?
I'm sorry, you
Go
start.
ahead.
I'll be brief. My name is Philip Amser. I live at 4017 Huron Court.
Did you spell your last name for the?
Yeah, AMSLER. I actually am one of the frequent pedestrians and cyclists on that road all the time, so I share a lot of the concerns that have been voiced so far. I'm just going to shoot for the gold here and just plant the seed in case this does go through. There is an abandoned roadway right next to it where Cove was rerouted if we wanted to push pedestrian traffic towards Emberlink down that road as an option for giving a safe route for other people that are using the road and reducing traffic. Just going to plant that seed. That's all I have. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Katie Banta, 336 Milldam Road. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. As we've all stated, this proposal raises serious concerns for our schools, infrastructure, and us as taxpayers. Indiana Township, without the addition of these 172 homes, has approximately 252, as was already mentioned, additional homes planned or under development at the time. This can give hundreds of new students entering our district, directly impacting DMS and Hartwood, where both of, or all of our children are attending. Families, including mine, have chosen this community because of the quality of our schools and the average, which is 14 to 1 teacher to student ratio. Growth on this scale will inevitably affect that balance. More students means more classrooms, more teachers, more staff, more transportation and infrastructure, and ultimately higher taxes for all of us. We came from a school district in North Carolina that was meeting in these awful looking trailers, which I would hate for that to happen in our school district, these beautiful campuses. All of that said, my appeal is actually to your minds, or not only to your minds, but to your hearts, to your spirit, your connection to this community, nature, and creation itself. Some decisions cannot be measured only by traffic studies, engineering reports, or density calculations. Some decisions require wisdom and courage, as my husband, I didn't know he was writing, but courage to protect something that's irreplaceable. I understand the responsibility each of you carries. These decisions cannot be easy. But tonight, I ask you to consider that what may permanently be lost if this agricultural land is rezoned into a 172-unit PRD. This is not just another piece of property. This land contains a truly magnificent forested area, including irreplaceable woodland that has stood for more than 100 years. Once this forest is cleared, it's gone forever, as somebody else already mentioned. Can I ask each of you sincerely, have any of you actually stood on that property? Anyone? Yeah. Well, I have, because I live in the area and we are avid hikers. And if you haven't stood beneath those trees and seen what already exists on that property, you're really missing something. This land is a safe haven for wildlife, bears, turtles, bald eagles, foxes, deer, honeybees, and countless other species which are steadily losing habitat around us, and you can't ignore that. You all have signed off on some major pieces of property that we have lost. At some point, we have to ask ourselves, does every remaining green space need to become another housing development? I also respectfully remind the board members that you were elected by the people of this community. The residents, families, parents, and taxpayers depend on you to protect the long-term future of this township. I appreciate the numbers that they have provided. However, I strongly disagree. I do not think that you are preserving the land, the unique surrounding land. And unless I'm mistaken, the people who elected you do not include the developers or the landowners, which aren't present. I mean, the landowner, or the developers are, but the landowners are not present here. And for comments made during previous planning meetings, it appears that there are already concerns about whether this proposal fully complies with township ordinances, and respectfully, I worry that there may be a willingness to overlook certain details to make this project fit. But ordinances exist for a reason, to protect the community and ensure development happens responsibly. And if repeated exceptions are needed to force this project into place, perhaps it's a sign that this development was never meant for this land to begin with. Once this forest is gone, there is no undo button. Future generations will never criticize us for protecting this land. But they may one day ask why we failed to protect one of the last beautiful natural spaces left in Pittsburgh. Tonight, I respectfully ask you to protect this land, to protect the wildlife, to protect the schools and the taxpayers, and protect the character of this community for generations to come. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nettie Owens. I'm at 109 Bruno Drive. And I'm glad to be here tonight and to see so many people coming to speak about this development. I have been at all of the planning commission meetings that discussed it and shared some of my concerns at those meetings as well, but I'm going to bring them to you here tonight. So should this plan go through, something that I'd like to point out is if you look at the townhomes, which the engineer and the developer are very excited about what they came up with in order to put as many homes as possible into this space. It creates a situation where you have houses that are sitting very close to the road with a continuous front yard. And in the back of the house is the driveway, which can fit 4 cars, maybe max, in the driveway and 2 cars in a garage, as we already learned. The concern here is that the majority of people who are going to come into this development, should it be built, are young families. That's what we attract in Indiana Township because of our awesome school district. We do not attract retirees. They're not going to pay the school district tax. In fact, often when families grow up and move on, they leave the district because of the school tax. But keeping in mind that you may have a young mom who's got a couple of kids at home, or a young dad, a couple of kids at home, and are they going to put up a fence around the front yard to let the kids go out and play in the small postage stamp out front? Sidewalks were mentioned, but those sidewalks will not be in front of the townhomes. So you will have just a short yard and then street. there won't be a backyard. You can see even from the image there that it's mostly driveway and road that's in the back of the house. And a decision was made to not provide a playset area, like a local community playground, because of the proximity to Emerald Park. But for all of those folks in this room that have had young children at home, hopping all the kids in the car to drive down the road to the park is not very appealing when you have 10 minutes to play before dinner time. But in this arrangement, for especially the townhome folks, you're not going to be able to let them go out and play in the front yard without risking them being very close to the road. So they had to make accommodations for this arrangement, and they touted the lovely scene of an uninterrupted front yard. So there really was no interest in putting fences around that would be protective of the children there. Additionally, these are two parts of the same development with lots of families coming in, and it's already been noted, the traffic on Cove Run. But what if one of the children wants to go across the street to their friend's house? They would be crossing Cove Run, walking down a blind turn into the next neighborhood, which is not safe. I think that is, I think all the other points that have been made about just the disruption are important to keep in mind. But what hasn't been said tonight, because we're talking about the Cove Run PRD, is that the Indiana Trails PRD is back on the table, which means we're not just looking at the 172 units for this, but also all of the developments that have recently been approved and are under construction. And additionally, we may have forgotten as a community that Indiana Trails was kind of waiting in the shadows, but it is back. And that is an additional 100 or so units. I don't recall the exact number.
About 85.
What?
I think after the settlement, it's about 85.
95?
Well, they
85?
substituted the 30.
83.
83.
Right. So adding that to this number, and the impact that it would mean, I guess my last comment would just be about emergency services. We made a lot of noise to make sure that Indiana Trails had emergency access because of the long road. We've heard how that would disrupt more green space, but it is a concern to make sure that emergency services can access these homes that will be full of our community members.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
It's a weird mix of nervousness and adrenaline that gets going up here. I mean, I've been coming to these, 3.5 years? I see a lot of new faces. Oh, yeah, Tom Drake, 105 Hodel Terrace. You guys are mostly from up on Rich Hill Road, from what I can gather. The other movie, the prequel was, all of us from District 5, which, the 22 acres of pristine trees that will be cut down, I assume, in a matter of weeks, probably, for Indiana Trails, depending, right? And I was at soccer practice for my daughter, so I missed some of my man here's presentation. I've been through them before this, so I'm sure it's pretty similar. But I also know how this movie goes too. If any of you haven't read John's postings lately, you really should. They're terrific. They go through a lot of the background, a lot of the circular issues that go on here. There'll be another one of these. If nothing changes, it'll probably be on your road. I talked to someone who lives on Church Lane, and they don't think it can happen where they live, but it'll happen where they live too. They're like, oh, it's protected, right? One by us was on Allegheny Places, wasn't it? So that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme. So we'll have 3 votes to 2. If you lose, someone might take it to court, you know, if someone has the gumption like McGowan's did. But, you know, we'll hear mixed things about, you know, how the PRD isn't the end all be all, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it's not that much more dense, you cut down more trees or whatever. The proof is in the pudding. They keep coming using the PRD ordinance. That's the fact. So, you know, I hate to be a Debbie Downer here, but, you know, I feel bad. I've sat through this. I mean, I've seen every one of these. You know, I'd probably encourage someone that has friends in the other districts to show up, because it'll be in another district. You guys will go on your way. A lot of the people up by us, and we see a lot of them. They've probably given up on Indiana trails, and here we are.
And
So,
two of them aren't even here. These two guys aren't even here tonight.
you know, there's I reserve my right to speak in a regular meeting too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some things we can talk about, but yeah, this is how this goes, and I mean, look at everything jammed in there. It's just a beautiful part of the world. And, yeah, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Hello, my name is Claire Conti. I live at 3014 Seneca Court. It's the first time speaking at one of these. Usually I just send a letter, but I thought I'd try my hand. I've been attending the Wildlife Leadership Academy for 5 years now. I am also about to graduate at Fox Chapel Area High School. Amazing school district. Thank you. I do sports. I've lived here my entire life, and the one thing I always loved about it here was that I could go up Cove Run and it's just gorgeous trees. In the fall, it is just, oh, it's so beautiful. And as I was driving here today, and I was like, man, this could just disappear if this plan goes in. And usually everybody else here already, I don't want to harp on it about the watersheds, which is very important, is what I've been studying and plan to study at Allegheny College. But the one thing I wanted to mention was that the school taxes are going to go up. I hear my mom complain about it. But we've already had to add 4 teachers to DMS just this year because of how many 6th graders came in. That cost us $250,000 to taxpayers. That's a lot. And as someone who's attended Hartwood, DMS, and now the high school, we don't have the space for those students. There's just, it's not fair to the teachers. It's not safe for the other students. We just can't fit any more people. That's, and my, thank you.
Thank you.
Want to speak first?
Your name and address, please, sir.
My name is Rick Wagner, 146 Cove Run Road. We built our home in 1986 on Cove Run Road. We've seen a lot of changes. Road alignment, gas well. None of those have been good for us. That road is worse than it used to be. The police have to sit at the top to stop the kids from burning tire. We are afraid of pulling out of our driveway. This is not good for Cove Run Road. My comment to you is, with you township buying additional property for their park, and the Game Commission buying this acreage for state game lands, why would you approve something right next to it? I can already hear those people complaining about the gunshots. They can't let their kids walk around in the woods. I grew up in the woods. I grew up off of Middle Road, and we were in the woods 100% of the time. We crawled all over those hills. I crawled all over these hills. I love these hills. but this is not a right move, and you people know it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
I'm Steve Sokol. I live on Cove Run Road. I'm probably the only person in my house is on the map on the far left side in silver. I'm against it. The road isn't wide enough for that. There's too much traffic on it right now. Everyone that lives in Roll Ridge at the Miranda Plan, Rich Hill Road, the Miranda Plan, Richmond, they all drive their kids to school by my house. There's a lot of traffic on the road already. Even when you get to the end of the road, you have to wait to pull out onto 910 just from the traffic on 910. I mean, you would definitely have to put a red light in 910. Like last week, I get up to 910 at Saxonburg, you can't even make a left to go towards the school because the traffic from the school was the whole way to 910. You know, and I waited in it and went the whole way past the school. Once you passed the school, there was no more traffic. Okay, but like he's saying with the shooting, Rick, you know, there's people coming up there at 3 o'clock in the morning shooting across the street from my house. Okay, I've been calling the police 5 times now. They have came out. I watched, it's taken 16 minutes for him to get there. It's taken 22 minutes for him to get there. The night they finally got him, the guy left, came back again and shot again. Now the other times they're shooting an AR-15, I can tell they're unloading 30 rounds, 10-second interval, another 30 rounds again. Okay, the game commission finally, the police got him that night down the street somewhere. There was 3 people. The game commission is in the middle of addressing it now, so they have the 3 people. But there is a lot going on up there just since the game commission came. Whatever it is, it's just luring people in from downtown that have never been to the area. And the thing is, if you look on the sides of the road, you'll see mud out on the road. It's when you're getting forced off the road into the ditch and it's throwing the mud out on the road. Specifically like between me and Forest View Road. Okay, and then like you're saying you're doing the 700 feet down the street, that needs widened, but even when you go all the way up towards Rich Hill Road below Forest View, that bend right there, you're getting forced off the road right there again. I mean, you cannot handle the traffic that's gonna be added on top of these other housing plans. Most of these parents, their kids don't go on the school bus now, they drive to school. And they're all driving that road every day. You can see the same cars in the morning, the evening, at the same times and stuff like that. And then, the next thing is for the people that live on Cove Run, I missed the first 8 minutes of the meeting. Where is the utilities going? Are we gonna be forced to pay for sewer tap-ins and stuff like that? Or like they did on Rich Hill Road years ago, if you was within so many feet of the road, you had to pay a tap-in fee, which was $5,000, $10,000, whatever, run a sewage line to your house and all that kind of stuff. Do we have an answer to that? For me or Rick or Bill in the back here, do we know if we have to pay for this stuff or where is the sewage line being ran to?
Okay, you, just to get, the idea, I know you missed the beginning, but the idea was to let everybody make their comments.
Okay.
And at the end, the developer will respond, and one of the questions we asked to respond to is where the utilities are and how that's all gonna work.
Okay, yeah, because with that comes tap-in fees. Okay, yeah, there's only, I think, 6 houses on my street, but we're not interested in any of that. I mean, we all have our own systems and set up and been there this long right now. You know, like, I don't come to township meetings. The last meeting I was in 94 to build my own house. The only person there was my dad at the meeting. You know, like, I'm not here to bother you guys. I'm just saying, I don't think things have been thought through enough just yet. Okay, and like they keep mentioning with the school district and all that, I see that. I'm over there. You know, I see what Saxonburg Boulevard's like, what my street's like, and everything like that. It's the same vehicles. whether it's school's over and they're going to baseball games or whatever they're doing, there's a lot of vehicles on the road. You know, like I said, you're gonna have to have a red light out at 9:10 or something like that, because it's just not, I mean, it takes a while to pull out there now, and you're rubbernecking each way just not to get hit, to get onto the road. You know, and for the newer people in the community, I mean, this plan was already in 20 years ago. Abbott and DiMartino owned it, and they sold it to these guys, but when Miller owned it before it went to the game commission, the price of gasoline was $1 something a gallon. They were building 150 houses up there that the township already gave them. They had plans, everything. I probably still have all the paperwork at home that they were gonna do it then. It's just that Abbott and DiMartino and Miller were trying to combine their properties to do it. The price of gas went up, and the builder left because the cost of running the utilities there. But what I've been told is that when McClellan Road Tunnel was filled in, they left conduit at the bottom of that to run the utilities down to by the Rod Gun Club, which there is a sewer line down there. It's like, that's what I wanna hear, where's all this stuff going to? You know, and I want a better plan for something to do with the road and getting off of that road, you know, and because there's gonna be, beyond a bad accident, there's not a fatal accident. I mean, I have a dump truck, I come down the road and like a lot of these people that aren't used to being in the country, they're driving down the middle of the road. You know, it's just not safe for us or anyone using the road, you know? Like when you come up to the end of Cove Run Road to go to 910, the new intersection to make the right to go behind Pizza Roma, you can't even turn right if there's a car there. The intersection's too narrow. You know, right there, even like, I know it's Harmer Township, but whenever you go up to the Rich Hill Road end, everyone from all these plans I mentioned is going to 910 on Rich Hill Road. You go up to Pitt, Ohio, them trucks are on the wrong side of the road, and the road's way too narrow up on that end as well. I mean, I know that's Harmer, but that's still, them same people are gonna go from this plan, those same directions, because that's what everyone else is already doing already, but like I said, I'd like to have a lot more thought put into it before we just collect another big pile of money in taxes in the township.
We need to get our comprehensive plan done, it's 4 years late, so, make big choices without a game plan, that's what you get.
And then they should be able to answer your questions about the utilities, and also the person who did the traffic study is also here.
It's 4 years late.
Well, that's like another thing.
You wanna speak to the people? You're the manager.
Hey. This is a public hearing, don't get in an argument here on the board,
I'm not,
please.
fair enough. We'll wait till public comment in the regular meeting.
Because like the day, you know, they began core drilling, okay? So they began core drilling, they're drilling over there, maybe on like the second day. My well goes dry, no water, okay? I called the township, I said, what is going on up here with the drilling and all that? They didn't know there was any drilling being done, okay? So I go, they don't show up, okay? I call a well guy out, he comes out, puts a brand new pump in, can't get any water coming out, okay? The core drillers are not around for 4 or 5 days, all right? Finally, we get the water working again, okay? I go over, talk to the drillers, ask them how far are you drilling down, he tells me 10 feet. And I said, because my well went dry, I wanna know if it has something to do with it. He goes, we're nowhere near your house. I said, yeah, you are, you're right behind it. They drove bulldozers through the woods and the holes are in the ground. Okay, but the answers for them were not honest. They're saying they're drilling 20 or 30 feet. The guys tell me to drill 10 feet. You know, so $3,200 later, I got the water back on. Was it a coincidence that happened as soon as they started drilling? You know, I don't know. But for me, the problems have already started up there with the whole thing. You know, like the houses below me all have wells below this site. Everything they're gonna excavate is going right down to that stream.
We don't have wells, we have springs.
Yeah, they have springs.
We have a spring. Where's all that runoff gonna go?
And Abercrombie has a spring that comes out of the hill down there. You know, Bill has a well that's at the bottom of that. You know, it's the same thing, like I said, we don't wanna pay for the utilities are needed, but we're stuck with what is gonna happen from all this on our own, but, so thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Lisa Andrew, and I live at the top of the hill on, in, off of Foxchapel. I'm sorry, off of Rich Hill. And so I just wanna bring up three things, and you mentioned that they're going to be able to answer our questions. So I'd like to know if they've done a water study on the ground that they're gonna be developing on, and also a road study, because it basically you get one car through that narrow road. And then the third one is about the noise, because
Which narrow road are you referring to?
Cove Run. And then with the noise in my home, I'm inside the house, and I can hear those gunshots, and it's like it's right in my house. And that is the scariest thing when we're having neighbors or guests over, and they're wondering, where's that coming from? And our dogs are scared. It's just really unfortunate that this is, and maybe these people will not even know that that's gonna happen, and when they move in, it could really be a dangerous issue, so I thank you for addressing those.
So could you spell your last name for the public board also?
Sure, A-N-D-R-U-D, Lisa, Andrew, thank you.
Thank you. More comments? Seeing none?
I think there's some, developer, can respond to a lot of the questions.
Okay.
Yeah, you got one? It's just gonna be a lot easier.
So I think just you respond as well that the board has, feels that they're unanswered questions, certainly that's.
There are plenty of questions, I believe one specifically water and sewer. I will do my best to answer what I can confidently. Okay, well, it'll get me close. Okay. To answer the, I don't remember that question about water and sewer. First of all, we've got in hand capacity letters, evidencing availability of water and sewer from the Oklahoma Water Authority and DCDVA, which is Deer Creek Drainage Basin Authority for sewer service. Water and sewer, that's the first stop. That was a condition of planning commission approval. Water, this isn't gonna show up. Water is available for extension at near the intersection of Rich Hill and brought up through. Pardon?
Paper one.
Oh, there we go. Water is available down here. We have spent quite a lot of money having that studied by the Water Authority to ensure that there will be adequate pressure, capacity, line size in order for that to occur. Sanitary sewer initially was heading this way as well. We've been a coordinated effort with DCDVA. There will be, in either scenario, there would be a pump station at about this location to serve this site, which will then pump in this direction back towards Emerling Park. That final design has not been completed yet, but that is the two locations where existing facilities will be extended from.
I have a question to that. So where the pump facility is gonna go in, I assume you'll have to clear out more land?
Could you state your name?
Yes, sorry, Maria Simon. So where the pump station is going to go in, will you have to clear out more land for that?
A very small area. The pump station building is 14 by 14 with a parking space. And that will be.
It's already part of the plan right now.
Yeah, it's already, sorry if I just, because I didn't mean to. It's already been contemplated as shown on the drawing. And included in clearing or disturbance calculations. So, not more land, but.
So that means you'd be going by line.
And again, sir,
I don't know.
I think we gotta let Cork him.
Names of people speak.
Yeah, so, and I say, just sure, these addressing your questions, so yeah, if you wanna, identify, state your name for the court reporter, then say.
Steve Sokol. So if the pump station's going in here somewhere, you're going this way, this is my property right here. So you'd be going by my house, and I'm 200 feet from the road. So do I have to pay for a tap in, or am I exempt of this? Because I don't need it.
How many feet do you have to be in there?
How old's your house? I built in 1994.
So that would be, I believe it's 150 feet. You have to be closer than 150 feet. I'm sorry, Dan, slightly.
And Dan, while we have not got to that level of design, this being a force main is also a factor that would need to be taken into consideration. I don't know that he would be able, if he wanted to, connect to a force main, unlike a gravity source.
To answer your question, I'm sorry, it was 250 for your house. And the answer is that it has to be accessible. In other words, by gravity, that is not a gravity line, so you're not gonna be required by the Allegheny County Health Department.
Okay. Yeah, I installed my system through the county inspector.
But on the same token, if you put a grinder pump in, you could tap in if you wanted to, but you're not required.
Okay.
No tap fee.
Okay.
Was there a second specific question? Yeah, right.
Well,
Traffic, we're gonna.
Relative to sewage and water, I think there was, oh,
It's a traffic road study, so we also have.
Right. I will, and I apologize if someone said I glazed over the traffic study. The traffic study, I think, is, yeah, you might as well just. I didn't want to put everybody to sleep.
Brett, before you go, there's a gentleman holding his hand up in the back. I don't know if you want to address him.
Yeah, my name's Bill Sokolos. I live on Cove Run, and I live down in the valley. Now, am I gonna have to tap in if they have to pump up to the, sewer line?
I mean, I can speak in generalities, but if you are, this is all force main originating from our site. Let me get this. Approximately this location right here, the entirety of our site will gravity flow one way or another to that location, and then be pumped along Cove Run to the nearest discharge manhole. I do not believe, I am not the sewer authority, I'm not Allegheny Valley, I'm not Deer Creek. But I do not believe you're required to tap into a force main, even if you wanted to. I know our provisions that come into play above and beyond a gravity line. Now, with that said, I don't govern the sewer authority no more than the board does, but I do believe that's standard practice.
Is it going through the state game line?
No, it's just paralleling the right of way.
I can't hear anything. I don't know what he said.
It's in question.
I'm sorry, the gentleman, Mr. Wagner asked a question. It
I'm
was.
sorry, I asked him where the sewer line was gonna run through the game lanes. And he said no.
And your answer was?
The answer is no, it will parallel and be within the existing road right of way.
And then the other question was about city water as well. Would that be Oakmont water provided?
Yes.
Your traffic engineer was gonna address traffic and roads.
Yep. Right. Somebody trying to ask another question.
I saw on the plans when I looked at them that the water was, shaler.
There's a typographical error.
And that People's Natural Gas was also going to come in. Is
That-
that true?
yes.
So there will be 3 utilities that have to be added.
That would be, yeah, I mean, water, sewer, gas are necessary for anyone to.
Okay, let's not, you can't talk over each other because it's a court report, she's trying to get it
Yeah,
right, so.
we're gonna stick to the, okay.
So you said there were 3, just repeat what you just said.
Water, sewer, natural gas, to the extent possible, electric upgrades will be conducted to bring those utilities to the site.
And then your traffic engineer was gonna address the traffic and road issues that were raised by the public.
Specifically Cove Run and Route 10.
Yeah, sure, it's Jenny McCracken, PEPTOE. So there were 4 intersections studied as part of the traffic impact study. So as a requirement of the municipality or of the township is any development that I think is more than 75 units requires a traffic impact study to be completed. So we go collect turning movement counts at each of those intersections. Those 4 intersections are Cove Run and Gibsonia Roads and 910, that intersection. The 2 site intersections, and then the 4th is Fieldview Lane is Rich Hill Road and Miller Lane / Cove Run Road. So
you said the two, just for clarity of the record, can you identify the two
Sure, the
sites?
2 site roads are on the map ahead of me, so that would be Cove Run Road and Site Road 1, and Cove Run Road and Fieldview Lane are the other 2 intersections that were studied. So that's counted during the AM and PMP periods, so during school hours, 7 AM to 9 AM or 6 AM to 9 AM is our standard that we collect in the AM, and then 4 to 6 PM at night. So then we look at the capacity of the intersections, current conditions. We look at it in the no-build condition, and we are looking at a horizon year of 2035. It's typical to look at a 5-year beyond build-out, so around 2035. And that's applying a growth rate based on SPC, so our Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission, so that is the 10-county area that Allegheny County is part of, that gives us that growth rate. So with that, each of those intersections all operate at acceptable levels of service today, will continue to operate at acceptable levels of service, and how level of service is graded is very similar to school, A to F. Under 10 seconds of delay is typically what a level of service A is. So if you're sitting for more than 10 seconds, then it keeps decreasing from there. So each of those are a level of service A today, and will continue to be a level of service A with this development. No signals are warranted. That is also looked at and required to be looked at. Turn lanes are required to be looked at. All of that is documented in the traffic impact study. Any questions?
So does that, just to clarify, that means that looking at this specific, intersection, that the delays that you were observing during those typical peak AM and peak PM hours were averaging an A rating of an under 10-second delay to turn
Right.
on to.
Correct.
Gibsonia
So obviously, when you have a 2-way stop control, which is what those intersections are, you have free flow movements on 910, right? You have free flow movements on Rich Hill Road. So they never stop unless they're yielding to a left turn, right? So if you're making the left onto Cove Run, you obviously are yielding, but outside of that, you're free flow. Which is partly why you see such good levels of service, right? A seems like really, really, really great. When we talk about that side street at 910, I can say that the level of service on that side street today was a level of service C, and it's gonna continue to be a level of service C, which means that folks are sitting, and I think some of the residents noted, you know, sometimes 15 seconds to get that acceptable gap because of the traffic on 910. That is still going to be acceptable, and the development traffic really is not changing that. So what the criteria is for looking at, if you are changing an intersection's overall level of service by more than 10 seconds, you are required to mitigate it. We are under that 10-second threshold significantly. We are increasing by like a second at each of these intersections.
Okay, and I just see that your, just glancing at your report here, was March of 26, and this was conducted, I'm assuming, on like a weekday.
Oh, yeah. So that is always typical. We collected, it's documented in this.
Just wanna make sure it's not spring break or anything.
No,
I know
we
that-
always
It's
check
traffic-
that.
If it's school traffic, right? I'm never out there, so I.
So we collected on March 4th, which was a Wednesday from 7 to 9 and 4 to 6 PM.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no
for
problem.
letting us know.
Yep.
Couple questions behind me.
Well, I think, I think maybe have, just for, or if the board wants to identify the questions, they come up to you and you can direct them back. You can stay where you are.
Okay, is it
You can
regarding
answer.
traffic?
Yeah. So are these questions on traffic that are gonna be asked?
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody that has a question needs to stand up and give a name so the reporter knows who it is. I just asked the question and she can respond.
Vanessa Sumrock, 119 Black Oak Drive. Couple questions on traffic. So it sounds like your data collection was just one interval in time then, correct? One Wednesday, okay.
So your answers have to be verbal because of.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, so we only
It's
have
always a typical weekday. that
one
is
data
collected.
point that encompasses 4 hours total, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, correct? Okay. Was Isley and Cove Run measured? The stop sign where, right by the park and the rugby field?
That was not one of the study intersections.
And one thing I want to point out is that there are moderating variables in the study. So post 6 p.m., the rugby field and the park get packed for baseball games and for soccer practices. There's a lot of traffic that comes off 910 onto Cove Run onto Isley, same going also on the weekends, which was also not measured. Also, the high school the buses start going at 6:30, kids are leaving for school at 6:30, which wasn't encompassed in the morning. So there might be some other mitigating factors in judging the traffic there.
Sure, I will speak to that in regards to the municipal code and state codes of Pennsylvania. So this is the standard practice, and I hear you, I'm a traffic engineer, I geek out on traffic all of the time. Took my daughter to the draft just so we could see how great traffic was. I'm not kidding, that's the type of person I am. But, so, you are totally right that traffic is very, very variable, and if I got a count at this intersection on the next day and the next day and the next day, it's never gonna be the same amount of traffic. That's just typical.
But you could get a median.
But what is required is that we look at the highest conditions of traffic in a day, and that is why the AM and PM peak periods are chosen, because typically, not typical, it's everywhere. There's statistics ran every single year, and typically your peak periods of the day, which is your highest traffic at an intersection, occur between those hours of 7 AM and 4 to 6 PM. So not saying that there's not variation and events and things like that that change traffic patterns, but we look at those hours because they are typically the highest of the day overall.
Just one question, you have played.
Maria Steinen, 2004 Carroll Lane. So Dorseyville and Hartwood schools, Hartwood's dismissed at 2:50. I can say as somebody who walks that road, I avoid that road starting at 2:30 every day because the traffic, I'm sure Mr. Sobel can speak to this, is the worst, I would say, at 2:30, 3 o'clock. So is there an ability to, listen to the board of supervisors, do an additional traffic study, have a third party come in and do a traffic study? Would that be possible?
That's, I think, directed to
To me?
No, that's directed to the board.
I think she has to answer what the other times were and how that.
Okay.
Certainly, so the standard practice is that you scope this study with the municipality. So they could have requested, or they can request additional timeframes be collected and analysis, or it is often with large developments that we'll look at a Saturday peak period, or if it's retail, we're certainly looking at a Saturday peak period. So there is some flexibility in the requirements, but again, it's still gonna be based on the highest traffic of the day typically.
And she did have a question about whether the board ever conducts an independent analysis. I don't know if we ever have spending authority to do something like that, but it's one of the asymmetries built into this system.
Cool.
Lisa, Andrew, 1032 Diane Lane. I wanted to know about the width of the road, if that was included in the study.
I think the question that was raised, I think a number of other people had expressed it, was, what about the width of the road? How does that work? Is that an issue?
We have no control over existing conditions of a roadway. We do certainly model all of that when we look at this synchro analysis or traffic analysis, and certainly everything that Alberto does. And we are certainly improving the 750 feet. Part of that is also that without doing that, it would not meet site distance requirements at those intersections, so that's partly to meet the site distance requirements, based on the code as well. As far as capacity of a roadway, typical 2-lane roadway, you're looking at 1,800 vehicles per passenger, per lane, per hour, right? It's quite significant, but there's a lot of factors that go into that. Shoulder width, roadway width, grades, right, all of that. But we aren't designing this road already exists, so that's not really a question I can answer, is really my response.
Chris Marsnick, Guys Run Road. To follow up on that, I just drove the road and I noticed two things. It's really curvy and there are no painted lines.
Yep.
There's no white lines and no yellow lines. Is there a criteria for a minimum road width that would get a line down the middle? And does Cove Run and Rich Hill meet that criteria?
There are requirements as far as when you can stripe a roadway. I believe that it has to be 18 feet wide. I would have to verify that. So I'm not sure, what is the existing roadway width, Roberto, does anybody know?
We're making the,
Sir, so could you just get your name so the court reporter can get you?
Alberto Harkin, Gateway Engineers. So the expanded area, the 750
Where
feet.
it's gonna be 11-foot lanes?
Yeah, I wanna say it's about, we're making it 20 feet minimum wide.
Okay, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
Okay, is the existing roadway width 20 feet?
I think it's a little bit narrower. 'cause
That's what I
we
thought.
feather it back in.
So likely it doesn't have pavement markings if it's on, like, it feels very, very narrow when you put the pavement marking, when we have widths that are less than 10 feet, which is probably why it's not, doesn't have markings today. I can't speak to that. That would be a question for Public Works, but I think it's 18 feet is the minimum.
Would that be part of the study to see if the roadway is wide enough to accommodate the extra traffic?
So, can I just say something?
Could you just?
Sure. Donald Graham, counsel for the developer. We're identifying deficiencies in your road. It's really not up to us to identify what you may need to do to correct any deficiencies in the road. We have to look at what our impact was on the road and mitigate what our impacts are on the road, which is what we're doing. If there's an existing problem with the road, then that would be the township's responsibility, not the developer's responsibility.
So that, beyond Banta, that pretty much means that the study and analysis is null and void. I mean, really, all the data.
Disagree entirely.
If all that data was collected, it was done outside of the parameter hours everyone's speaking to in here. It didn't take into account hunting season and the influx we get. It didn't take into account all the different traffic patterns that we're explaining. It only is a group time. No offense to the study, it's where they're boxed in at, I understand that, but that makes everything, all those stats completely erroneous.
And it's one day. One day.
I know this, again, it's not our fault. It's not picking on you. It's just, it is what it is. That is.
Just keeping order here. Is there anything,
This gentleman would like to speak.
I'd like to speak.
good,
Rick Wagner, Cove Run. The road isn't deficient. The road was built as a rural road when I built my house in 1986. It's adding almost 200 cars a day. The road needs to be improved if you decide to go with this plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first, Mr. Grimm, do you have anything else that you would like your traffic engineer to respond to?
No.
Does the board have any other questions for the traffic?
I have a quick follow-up just in this Simon's question with respect to the traffic expert's experience, because I only know the Indiana Township experience. Have you ever encountered a municipality hire its own third party to counter your, so basically this whole process usually involves one expert hired by the public.
It doesn't
I'm
always
just saying, in your experience,
require,
has it ever been
there's
different?
lots of developments that go in that are on state routes, and so therefore, whenever it's on a state route, right, it's also.
But with
has
respect to
PennDOT review.
PRDs, it's always been a one study. Sure.
Yeah, and you have your own
Mr.
engineers.
Graham, do you wanna address that?
Yeah, so.
You can't get what you stuff.
Do they-
What typically happens, and what I believe has happened here, is the traffic study is performed. It's submitted to the township. The township has their traffic engineer review the traffic study performed by the developer to determine whether or not that traffic study is adequate or not. So if the study was determined to be inadequate, that would be noted, and we would have to go back and address any inadequacies in the traffic study. That's the normal process. So are there two independent studies done? No, but there is a study done and there's an independent review done. Just like there is with every part of the engineering review, every part of the stormwater management review, the designs for water and sewer, whatever you have, those plans get reviewed by another professional that represents either the township, the water authority, the sewer authority, whomever, to verify that the design, the information, and everything is accurate.
Vanessa Lynch, so that would have happened at the planning commission? Which portion of when would that review have happened?
That happens not in a meeting. It happens by a professional engaged by the township. They review the studies, they review the engineering, they review the designs, they
Before
provide.
it gets here.
They provide comment letters.
Let me remind some of you, before anybody else speaks here, as I mentioned at the beginning of this is where we hear your comments. We know what you're asking, and we're gonna ask these, and we'll address a lot of the answers to the questions when it comes before the board for a vote. I mean, we need to study all this paperwork and everything that you folks have said in order to make a valid decision, so, you know.
If I can, right, I mean, this is, you know, it's the public hearing, and I think if you felt like you needed time, if the board feels like you needed time to review, I think we're prepared to ask questions this evening. I think we can continue the public hearing, and Mr. Graham's group would come back and extend the period of time to do such a thing.
Yeah, well, I think you're well within your time frames in terms of you've started the hearing on time.
So we're not at that stage, so I think, you know,
If you continue, that's your choice.
right, if you feel like there's more information or things you want to hear, or bring it back, we certainly will continue that, but, you know, if you close the public hearing, for example, then really none of these experts, none of the public has to come back. It's, you know, the process is to go through the public hearing process.
I think I'd leave it to the public. Do you think we need more time?
I think it's,
Yes.
again,
Yes.
it's supervisory, just to be clear.
So I would
I think
only-
the
We got
questions are
elected
being-
by them.
I'm just, so the questions are being asked, I think we're here to answer them, but, you know, the board-
I would only ask one thing. You tell us what you need us to address when you come back. I think that's a
We
valid
need you to
request.
address our constituents who have questions for you. Because they're still standing up, raising their hand.
I have a question.
No,
Mark
give it
Wagner.
another half an hour. I mean, like, we do have people who are.
Can I ask the board a question?
We're not cutting, again, the board
It's
needs to-
not about the development, but I would like to know, when I built my house, Rick Wagner,
Pause.
Run Road.
I'm taking down everything that everybody's saying.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. I just want you guys to know, so when you stand up and you say your name, it's just so you're identified on the record and your comments and your complaints and your
I got
stuff
you.
is there, just so you know.
I'm just a little excited.
And it's okay.
My question to the board is, when we built on Cove Run Road in 1986, we were zoned agricultural. When did it change?
All when I was there.
Zoning doesn't matter, it's beyond it.
Doesn't matter? I thought
No,
zoning did matter.
It doesn't matter. I'm telling you,
It's
it's
a
been,
joke.
been
What's your
years of
name?
it.
Okay, but excuse me, we've got people trying to take things on. You asked a question to the board. I'm not certain if people know, if that's. something
Daniel,
people-
do you know? Dan, do you know when the zoning was changed?
I don't recall that ever being agriculture.
It was agricultural when I bought my property.
I don't know what happened between 86, 95, whatever property was on the still on the table.
And how can they change it without
That would've been
notifying
before
me?
95,
Can they
so-
change it without notifying me?
That would have been.
I mean,
Okay,
this farm had to be agricultural at one point. I'm-
You know the answer to that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
It's the question to you,
Seems
that's-
to be
that's-
hanging out there. I mean, of the people here, would you return in a month to want to hear this discussion go further?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So I think, Al, since we do have a regular board meeting, we could maybe give it a half an hour, give it an hour, give it a 6 o'clock in June. Makes sense to me. We wanna hear the public, let's have a longer public hearing.
Well, you know, just.
I make a motion to have 6 o'clock, June meeting, public hearings for this
So are you suggesting you'd like to make a motion to continue right now?
Yeah.
You'd like to make a
We
motion?
pause it.
Motion.
Continue.
Till 6 o'clock on.
We gotta check out what that actually is. June 10th. June 10th.
June 10th at what, 6?
6 o'clock. Well, I'm gonna second this.
It's just, I think, I know there's, before you have discussion, I don't know which way the vote would go on this, but I think what Mr. Graham's request, they've done their presentation, there's certainly a theme of questions, but I think he's asking, is there certain things that you particular areas before we like address them further. The public, has their comments, there's certainly a list of questions that were provided, and I think he's asking for general other issues like that was addressed.
I would ask.
Hey,
Mr. Jorgensen, yes.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, would it be appropriate for us to give us a day or 2 days, to gather the questions, because there are a number of questions, and send them on, so that they can address the question, and we put them in writing, but here's what we need further clarification on, either from the board or from the resident, consolidate them into a document, and then, let them come back to answer those specific questions.
So you're suggesting asking any member of the public or to submit questions by, say, end of May, right? By May 31st, the township would then deliver them to the applicant, and then they would be prepared to answer those questions at the June 10th meeting.
Yeah, be in front of the June. I heard a couple of days, and I'm fine with it. If you wanna say you're gonna get us those comments, by the beginning of next week or something?
So today is May
13th.
So if everyone would want to submit any additional questions, they would have by May 21st, which is a week from today, a week from tomorrow, and then we would then provide them to the applicant, and you could have the ability to respond to all of those at that point.
I don't wanna commit to responding to all questions. Take your questions and we'll respond appropriately.
And that was.
I'm sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, those questions should be directed to this PRD, because there was a number of topics that came up this evening that weren't necessarily addressed at the PRD. And they should be areas that really haven't been covered, or there needs more clarification.
And my question was, since this is now, I guess, discussion, these materials will be available for the public as well, I'm assuming, if they want to review them, since they're now part of, public. So.
We have no issue on that.
No, I mean, the only thing I'd note is there are copyrighted drawings, so we want some copies of the copyrighted drawings going out, the reports.
But if we
and
left
those
a copy
things.
here, and someone during business hours wanted to come in to review traffic study numbers, for example, okay, great.
I just have a logistics question, Nettie
Great, me
Owens. So if the public, by this particular arrangement, has 1 week to, review the materials, submit additional questions, review the tapes, I'm assuming from the meeting, because Supervisor Jorgensen said we should only submit questions that haven't been asked before. So will the recordings be made available? And how will you notify the larger public who's not in this room right now about this and the deadline? And by what means will you be accepting the communications?
Well, I guess first, the way public hearings work is you have, as a rule, right, you have to be at the public hearing to testify, right? So anybody who's here is being notified of this process. There would not typically be a further notification on that, typically, right? So that's, anybody, I think the way to submit it would be emailed to, what email address? Right, so it would be, send any request to the township manager at Anderson, at indianatownship.com, would be the way to submit that, request.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry, could you repeat
Sure.
that?
You can do it danderson@indianatownship.com, and that is on our website. If you go to our website, you'll find the link on my email there.
And again, I think what Mr. Jorgensen was saying, people can ask whatever they want. It would make, if it's already been answered, it's up to, again, whatever questions, I don't think there's a limit on it, whatever question you want to submit, people can submit. It'd be hard to really figure out what was done, and if you think there's more clarification necessary, I think that's fine. And again, it'll be up to the developer whether they feel that they want to answer it in more detail or not.
Sorry, what about questions for the board? Will those be addressed then as well, like having a third-party traffic study? Would those be addressed at the June 10th meeting? If there's questions that are more for the board of supervisors versus the development.
The board will address things, the board addresses it as it's all determined based on.
You can feel free to CC your representative as well with questions that you may have.
I have a problem with that.
No, I think that's a concern.
There has to be a public.
This is again, this is
Oh.
not, this isn't your typical, just to
No,
be
I
clear.
meant not for the PRD,
No,
for,
Well,
okay.
but again, this is not your typical,
Because we're in
legislation.
our quasi-judicial.
Exactly, so there really shouldn't be any discussion about the
Right.
PRD outside of this,
There
but.
should be no
so-
communication.
I thought she meant
To
outside
any
of
board
this
member.
particular matter.
Okay, yeah, that's different, of course. Yeah,
That's
and
what I
you
thought
can
she
always
was talking
contact
about.
the
No, I mean,
township
it's not.
supervisor on
But
non-
if people ask about the PRD ordinance, not the specific PRD application, I mean, I know that's,
Well, again, anything that, I guess what I'm saying is, questions relating to this development should come into the township manager,
Yes.
and they'll be submitted, and they will address it. The township elected officials will not see those in advance.
you don't wanna ask our opinion or our interpretation of anything that's gone on here, or try to get a sense of how we're gonna vote, we have to stay unbiased. But if you look at our actual section 4 PRD, and you have a question about something general that has nothing to do with the Cove Run application,
But, of course, members of the public can submit whatever they want. I think depending on how they come in, you would have to evaluate whether
Yeah.
you can answer that without, triggering something. You know,
yeah, and it's our job to filter that.
Right. So I think that's where we are right now. I think
Vanessa Lynch. there was one other question from a community member that I don't feel like was addressed, so I just wanna make sure it's noted. About this top cul-de-sac that you have going on, that there's asked for a variance of 100% increase in length. The question was around emergency vehicle access and the ability of them to be able to provide adequate services to all of the homes. I think that one has not been addressed, and it's pretty important when it's a part of such a big variance request.
School board might want to know.
All right, so, I think we need a motion second. I wonder if you could withdraw it, because I want to add in, I would like you to add in the stuff about the document questions being submitted.
The motion that is on the table right now is that any questions pertaining to this request can be
Point
submitted.
of order, Mr. Brown. The motion second was strictly to continue the hearing. That's all this, you probably need to pull it back and add that to.
You need to
Is it
redo the motion.
So,
Yeah, redo the
right,
motion.
so whoever, if you can
So I
withdraw.
made I'll withdraw the motion to continue in its previous form.
And someone will withdraw their second.
Al, make a
I'll
second.
withdraw my second.
So now, Mr. Pines, the motion that you're talking about, which is a motion to, I'll give it a shot, make sure, but it's a motion to continue the public hearing until June 10th at 6 p.m. Any questions from the public should be submitted to D. Anderson at indianatownship.com on or before May 21st, 2026. Well, no, Thursday, May 21st, 2026. And those, and I think they'll then be submitted to the applicant to come to the next meeting in April. That's the motion.
I'll second that.
You gotta make-
Oh, I gotta make that.
Gotta make it.
Al is making that one.
All right, so-
I would make the motion verbatim as to what the solicitor sketched out. Past 4 minutes.
Can I ask one clarification? Because I think you guys said it well, that these are questions specifically related to this PRD,
right.
not related to any
No.
other general topics.
People write it, they write it, yes.
If you don't submit, do you forfeit your opportunity to comment at the next meeting?
No. We'll have an opportunity to comment, but the idea is that way they can be prepared to at least give an answer that they know.
Streamlining the process.
So you bring back the traffic engineers, or should we continue with that one? We still have a question there.
I'm assuming you'll have questions that we're gonna have to bring our traffic engineer back.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
the same people that are present for this, it's a continuation of this hearing. So the people that are present will be present for the continuation.
Does the road that terminates coming out of the largest part of the township, having its traffic study done on March 9th, when according to my phone, it was 9 degrees.
Well, that, again, that's your, but they're.
Thank you.
Send it to Deanne. Yeah, send it to Mr. Motion.
That's just,
Okay.
and no one's going to the park either. Just- Okay, just making sure that.
Next month.
We need to get the motion off the table.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Motion and a second. Is there any
Further discussion?
by the board? No.
I'm ready to vote.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Jorgensen? Mr. Jorgensen?
Overview, Belden, aye.
Okay. And, all opposed? Motion carries to continue this hearing, this public hearing, to the 10th of June at 6 p.m. at this location. And, the people that are present and have questions, they can address them, but please, if you have questions specific to this request, to this applicant's request, submit them to us so we can provide it to them, so answers can be ready to be given to you, because some of the questions you're asking, they'll have to look at it and answer the question. Yes, ma'am, what do you?
So there'll be no new memo released to the public for people that aren't here, to know to show up June 8th? That's what urban.
No, the meeting was
Okay, I just
advertised,
wasn't sure. We don't-
just to be clear, the
Yeah.
meeting was advertised properly for tonight.
Mhm.
Anybody that was interested in coming to the meeting came tonight. That's how that works. Anybody's here, this is the notice that it's being continued to the next meeting.
Can new people
Because-
come? Can new people come? If they
Anybody
didn't-
can come.
Okay,
Of course.
got
Public
it.
hearing, friends.
And is there, can we make an exception as a township to put out another memo?
Again, they're, well, I don't know how the township will do it. They're not required to, it's hard to say at this point. You know, everybody in this room knows what the meeting is.
I can let people know. Do we wanna give people a sense of when we're having
And the hearings-
regular?
The hearing's closed. This is at this point, we probably need to call the new meeting to order and then address.
Okay. This hearing is closed now, or not, excuse me, continued now. It's not closed. It is being continued now.
I gotta go